Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me where and what time you're watching? Thanks. My grandfather, Arthur Bellamy, passed away last month. His death wasn't a surprise. He was 92, frail, and had been declining for years. But still, something about it felt wrong. He didn't die in a hospital, not in a nursing home either. He died alone in the same creaky, time-worn house he'd lived in his whole life, the old family estate out by the woods. He refused to leave it, no matter how much we begged. That house had a history, one no one in my family ever wanted to talk about. My father always changed the subject if it ever came up, and my mother, she flat out refused to even set foot inside. I always figured it was just old trauma, something unspeakable, tucked into the floorboards. But when the will was read, guess who got left in charge of sorting through his things? Me. I was never close to him. Grandpa was strange, strict, a man who believed in routine like it was religion. When I was a kid, he'd tell me odd stories about our ancestors, how we came from a long line of watchers. I didn't understand what he meant, and honestly, I never cared enough to ask. But now, standing alone in that drafty house that smelled like dust and ancient books, I was about to find out. There, sitting on his old mahogany desk, was a worn shoebox. On top, a yellowing envelope with my name on it, in his familiar shaky script, to my grandson, Michael. Listen to these in order. Follow the rules. Do not break them. Inside the box were 7 cassette tapes, each labeled in his handwriting, and I turned the note over. On the back, he had written the rules for listening to my tapes. Start with tape number 1. Do not skip ahead. You must listen at exactly 11 p.m. Not before, not after. Do not listen to more than 1 tape per night. Do not stop the tape before it finishes. Let it play. If you hear whispering in the background, ignore it. Do not acknowledge it. If the tape stops suddenly, but the reel is still moving, do not speak. Just wait. Under no circumstances should you ever listen to tape number 7. I read the list 3 times, then stared at the tapes. 7 of them, 7 nights. I should have walked away. I should have called the estate lawyer and told him to deal with this weird crap, but I didn't. Because somewhere deep down, in a part of me, I didn't want to admit existed. I wanted to know. That night, just before 11, I sat in my grandfather's old study, the one with the green armchair and the grandfather clock that had stopped ticking years ago. The room was too quiet. I could hear the hum of the cassette player before I even pressed play. At exactly 11 p.m., I inserted tape 1 and pushed the button. The player clicked. The reel began to spin. A soft hiss of static filled the air, like an old radio trying to find a signal. And then, his voice. Grainy. Old, but unmistakably his. Michael, if you're listening to this, then I'm dead. And if you followed the first rule, it's exactly 11 p.m. That means you're already on the path. There's no turning back now. He didn't sound sad, no warmth, just cold, precise certainty. Like a man reading a grocery list, not delivering a message from beyond the grave. This family has responsibilities, Michael. Duties passed down for generations. You don't know it yet, but you've been watching your whole life, even if you didn't realize it. The static shifted, subtle, but there, and beneath his voice I thought I heard something. A whisper, not quite a word, just breath, brushing the edge of sound. I clenched my jaw and stared at the wall. You've felt it before. That sensation when you walk into a dark room and feel eyes on you. When you wake up at night and swear someone's standing in the corner. That's not your imagination, Michael. That's them. They've always been there. Watching. Waiting. And it's our job to make sure they don't get too close. My pulse thudded in my ears. I wanted to pause the tape, to turn it off. But I remembered the rules. And then, by playing this tape, you've acknowledged them. And now, they know. The air in the room changed. Heavy, still, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. I need you to do something right now. Do not turn around. No matter what you do, do not look behind. You until this tape ends. My breath caught. My body froze. Because the moment he said it, I felt it. A presence, just over my right shoulder. Close, not breathing, not moving. Just there. The whispering wasn't on the tape anymore. It was in the room. I squeezed my eyes shut and gripped the arms of the chair so tightly my knuckles ached. The tape kept playing. They want you to notice them. That's how they work. The moment you look, they see you. Really see you. A soft creak came from the floor behind me. Not the house settling. Not my imagination. A step. I held my breath. They feed on fear, Michael, but they respect the rules. The rules are old. Older than this house. Older than you or me. Another whisper. This one sounded almost like my name. Just hold on. Let the tape finish. Don't speak. Don't move. Don't give them what they want. I stared straight ahead, heart pounding, throat tight, trying to ignore the sensation of something looming behind me, just out of sight. The hiss of static began to fade. His voice gave way to silence, and then, click, the tape ended. I didn't move for a full minute, maybe longer. Then, slowly, I stood and turned around. There was nothing there. But the air still felt wrong. Like the room had shifted somehow. Like the rules had kept me safe, for now. And that's when it really hit me. There were 6 more tapes. You acknowledge them, and they get stronger. If you turn around, they'll know you see them, and then they'll never leave. The whispering grew, shifting like smoke curling along the walls. Soft at first, then crawling, slithering, pressing in. Something brushed against my shoulder. I didn't flinch. I couldn't. My lungs screamed for air, but I wasn't sure if I was even breathing anymore. The tape crackled again, static breaking like brittle glass. My grandfather's voice returned, quiet, firm, and utterly cold. Just hold on, Michael. The tape is almost over. If you followed the rules, they'll leave. When it stops. I kept my eyes shut. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. My muscles locked in place, like I was strapped to the chair. The whispering surged, rising like a chorus of broken minds. Voices sobbing, laughing, growling, chanting in languages I couldn't recognize, couldn't even wrap my ears around. Some high and shrill, others deep and guttural like echoes from the bottom of a well. Then, click. The tape stopped. Silence. Thick. Absolute. The room was empty again, but the stillness didn't soothe me. It wasn't peaceful. It was awaiting. Silence. Like something was holding its breath just out of reach. I sat there, paralyzed. Then, slowly, I cracked open my eyes. The chair creaked beneath me like a warning. I turned my head just enough to glance behind me. Nothing, just shadows. And yet, the air was still heavy, charged, like static clinging to my skin. I looked down at the cassette player. The tape had ejected itself, and sitting beside it, where there had been nothing before, was tape number 2. I stared at it, heartbeat drumming in my ears. The house had gone quiet again. But it wasn't the kind of quiet that brings relief. It was the kind of quiet that watched you. I sat there for what felt like forever, staring at that second tape. My body still coiled, my skin damp with cold sweat. I should have stopped. I should have taken the box, buried it, burned it, anything. But I didn't, because something in me already knew. I wasn't going to be able to stop. At 11 p.m. sharp, I pressed play. The tape clicked, hissed, that same soft wash of static, like an old television on a dead channel. Then, the voice, his voice, my grandfather's. Good, you made it through the first one. That means you followed the rules. That means you're not like your uncle. I froze. Uncle. I never told you about him. No one in the family did, because there's no reason to talk about people who don't exist anymore. My spine stiffened. The air in the room shifted again, cold and sharp like needles. And there, woven beneath his voice, was the whispering again. But this time, it wasn't just noise. It was a word. No, a name. Whispers rising and falling over and over. Peter, Peter, Peter. I turned up the volume, slowly. The name grew louder, more urgent, more real. I racked my memory. I'd never heard of a Peter in our family. Not once. He was my first grandson, my grandfather continued. My first mistake. The first time I thought I could change things, that I didn't have to follow the rules. The tape skipped, briefly, then came back as a child's voice filled the room. A boy, no older than 10. Grandpa, there's someone in my room. Click, static, then my grandfather's voice again. Calm, emotionless. Close your eyes, Peter. Don't say anything. Don't listen. More static, then the boy's voice again. Shaky, trembling, barely holding back a sob. He's talking to me. The whispering surged again, both from the tape and, God help me, from the room itself. I could hear it behind the walls, under the floorboards, in the ceiling. I rubbed my arms. My skin was crawling, every hair standing on end. Then the boy's voice changed, strained, wet, like someone was holding his throat. He knows my name. And then came the sound I will never forget. A wet, choking gasp, the dull, frantic scrape of fingernails against wood. And then a scream, one long, ragged, soul-tearing scream. Then nothing, a silence so loud it rang in my ears. And then, finally, my grandfather's voice again. Peter never came back. Not really. His body did. But when he opened his eyes, it wasn't him anymore. His voice cracked. Just a little. The only sign of emotion I'd heard so far. We had to deal with it. I was shaking, hands clenched, teeth grinding, because I understood what he meant. Peter was erased, like he never existed, and that's why the family never spoke of him. He was gone, not just dead, wiped clean. The whispering wasn't subtle anymore. It was saying my name over and over. Michael, Michael, Michael. The tape cut off. Click, silence. And once again, the cassette spat itself out, and beside it, waiting like it had always been there, tape number 3. I should have stopped. I should have buried the tapes, burned them in the fireplace, thrown the box into the river. After what happened to Peter, after hearing my grandfather calmly admit to removing someone from existence like they were a corrupted file, I should have run. But I didn't, because the whispering hadn't gone away, even with the tape off, even with the house silent. I could still hear them, my name, repeated like a prayer, or a curse. Michael, 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 from behind walls, from under the floorboards, from somewhere I couldn't reach. And now, tape 3 was waiting. At exactly 11:00 p.m., I pressed play. The now familiar hiss greeted me, like the house itself was taking a breath. Then, Michael, my grandfather said, you need to understand, this didn't start with me. His voice was lower this time, slower, heavy. It didn't even start with my father. This goes back generations. This is our family's burden. The air felt thicker now. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to stretch just a little longer. My hands curled into fists. Something deep inside me stirred. He continued. We weren't just chosen. We were bound. Made for this. That's what he said. The whispering surged, louder than ever. Thick and suffocating, coiling like smoke that had learned how to speak. And for the first time, I could hear voices, not just murmurs, identities, some pleading, some sobbing, some laughing, but they all said my name, over and over. Michael, I turned up the volume. You felt it before, haven't you? My grandfather said. The way people avoid you. The way strangers glance at you in passing and then quickly look away. I clenched my jaw, my breath caught, because I had noticed. My whole life, people had treated me like I was made of static. Not cruel, not hostile, just uncomfortable, uneasy. Like they could see something I couldn't. They can sense it, the voice continued. They know, the whispering coiled tighter. We are the watchers, Michael, the last barrier between them and the rest of the world. That's why we follow the rules. That's why we never, ever break them. The voices swelled into a chorus. 100, 1,000, speaking over each other, whispering, singing, screaming. Then, a knock, not from the front door, from my bedroom door. Soft, gentle, but deliberate. I froze. The tape played on, unfazed. They know I'm gone now, my grandfather said calmly. And they know you're listening. Another knock, slightly harder. My hand scrambled for the rule sheet, scanning every line, every scribble in the margins. There was nothing. Nothing about knocking. Nothing about what to do. I swallowed. Hard. Gripped the arms of my chair like they were the only things keeping me tethered to this world. Michael, my grandfather said slowly. This next part is very important. Listen carefully. The whispering pierced my skull, sharper now, like knives under the skin. Crawling, writhing, pushing. And then he said it. The words that hollowed me out from the inside. If they knock, that means they've chosen you. The room tilted. My stomach dropped like I was falling. The knocking became scratching, nails dragging across wood. The doorknob jiggled. The whispering wasn't in the tape anymore. It was in the walls. It was inside the floorboards. It was under my skin. If you don't want to end up like Peter, he said, don't let them in. I couldn't breathe, press myself back into the chair, trying to disappear, trying to shrink into the shadows. The voices itched at the edges of my brain. They wanted me to open the door. They needed me to say something. But you won't, will you? The tape glitched, stuttered, like a broken record, and suddenly, everything stopped. The knocking, the whispering, silence. One final message, low and final. Good, then we still have time. Click, the tape cut out. The cassette ejected itself, with a mechanical sigh, and sitting next to it, exactly where nothing had been before. Tape number 4. I didn't move, couldn't. The cassette player sat in front of me like an open mouth, waiting, watching. I should have stopped, should have left the house, burned the box, called someone, but the knocking had stopped, and the voices, they were quiet too, like they were waiting, just like the machine. At exactly 11 p.m, I reached forward with trembling hands and pressed play. The tape clicked. Static hissed. Then, if you're still listening, my grandfather said, then you followed the rules. That's good, Michael. That's very good. I leaned forward, barely breathing. But I need you to understand something. These tapes, they're not just warnings. They're a test. My heart stumbled. My breath caught. A test. You've felt it by now. The way they pull at you, the way they want you to notice them. They're drawn to you, Michael. Just like they were drawn to me. The whispering stirred. Faint now, not urgent, not angry, just waiting. Like people standing in the next room, listening. I recorded these tapes because I needed to know. Would you be strong enough? Would you listen? Would you resist? My mouth went dry, because I knew where this was going. If you don't, if you fail the test, you will be the last of us. The whispering surged again, closer now. A sea of voices tugging at the edges of my sanity. The truth is, Michael, our family is dying. My heart thundered in my chest. Peter was just the beginning. After him, There were others. Your uncle, your cousin, your father. The air turned thick, unbreathable. He refused to listen. And so I had to protect you. But I can't anymore. It's your turn now. I remembered the way my father never spoke about his side of the family. The way my mother refused to let me visit this house. The way she cried when I told her I was coming here. If you fail, if you let them in, our bloodline ends. You'll be the last Bellamy, and there'll be no one left to keep them out. I squeezed my eyes shut. My fists trembled. The whispering pushed in, crowding the room, pressing into the corners of my mind. Then, a voice, not from the tape, not from the hallway, from inside the room, right behind me. Michael. I froze. My lungs locked up. The voice was low, soft and close. Crawling, almost human, but not quite. The whispering had stopped. Everything had stopped. And then, my grandfather's voice crackled through the old tape player one final time. If they start speaking to you directly, Michael, it means they're already inside. The tape cut out with a dull click. I just sat there, frozen. My heart pounded so hard against my ribs I thought it might break them. The silence that followed wasn't right. It wasn't just quiet. It was wrong, like the room itself was holding its breath. Then a voice spoke again. Michael, we've been waiting for you. I felt the words as much as I heard them, slick, cold, oily. They slithered into my ears, soaked in something ancient, something wrong. From the darkest corner of the room, something moved. I didn't dare look. I couldn't. The voice hadn't come from the tape. It hadn't come from the hallway either. It was right behind me. I remembered what my grandfather had said. If they start speaking to you directly, it means they're already inside. I refused to turn around. I refused to acknowledge it. Hands trembling, I reached for tape number 5. My fingers barely functioned. The cassette felt like it weighed 100 pounds. I shoved it into the player, my breath shallow, eyes burning. As soon as it clicked into place, the whispering stopped. Dead silence, like they were listening too. The tape hissed, cracked, and then came my grandfather's voice again, calm but urgent. Michael, if you've made it this far, you don't have much time left. I swallowed hard. My throat felt like it was lined with sandpaper. They've chosen you. And now you have a decision to make. I shut my eyes tight, bracing for what was coming. I know you hear them. I know you feel them. I know you're wondering what they are. Yes. God, yes. I'd felt it all my life. That itch at the back of my neck, the sense of eyes watching me from the corners of rooms that were supposed to be empty. Family gatherings with hushed whispers that stopped the moment I walked in. There had always been a secret, and now I finally knew what it was. They're not ghosts, Michael. They're not demons. They're what came before us. They've always been here, waiting for a way back in. I felt sick. The whispering returned, low and furious. 1,000 overlapping voices, crawling through the walls, slipping beneath my skin. It felt like fingers dragging along bone. And our family, we've always been the ones keeping them out. For centuries, the Bellum have stood between them and this world. We followed the rules. We passed the knowledge down. But every generation, they try to take one of us. A pause. I knew what was coming. And this time, Michael, it's you. My stomach dropped. The room felt colder. The shadows in the corners deepened, thickened. They were waiting. I could feel them pushing against the boundaries of reality, testing them, testing me. This wasn't about the tapes. It had never been about the tapes. It wasn't even about my grandfather preparing me. This had always been about them. They had been watching me, testing me, waiting to see if I'd break. His voice came again, barely above a whisper now. I tried to stop them, Michael. I tried to find another way. But there isn't one. There's only ever been one choice. The whispering around me surged, loud and desperate. I gritted my teeth, chest tight. The air felt wrong, too thin, like it couldn't hold itself together anymore. If you let them in, if you break the rules, they won't just take you. They'll take everyone. And there will be no one left to keep the door shut. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate hits against the door. Don't let them in, Michael. The tape stopped. Click. I sucked in a breath like I'd been drowning. My whole body shook. The whispering hadn't stopped. It was louder now. Closer. The thing behind me was moving again. The floor creaked softly, like something heavy had shifted its weight. Then came another voice. Different. Familiar. Michael. Open the door. My breath caught. I knew that voice. It was my father's. Calm. Loving. Just like I remembered. But my father had been dead for 5 years. Michael. Open the door! The voice was wrong, off by just a hair, like someone trying to wear his voice like a mask. It sent a chill slicing through my spine. I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. This wasn't real. It was a trick, a test. I had to stay calm. Had to hold the line. Another voice joined the first. Softer. Warmer. Michael, honey. Please. My mother. Alive. Real. But the voice was outside the door. Not on the phone. Not where it should have been. I turned, my head slightly toward the sound. My body coiled like a spring. The whispering inside the room swelled again. The shadows on the walls flickered and pulsed like they were alive, breathing in unison with the thing behind me. Knock. This time, louder. Urgent. Don't let them in, Michael. My grandfather's voice echoed in my head. But my mother, what? If it was her? My hand fumbled for my phone. I unlocked it with shaking fingers and hit her contact. It rang. And then, the voice on the phone picked up. Michael. There was a pause. My stomach dropped, because the voice I heard on the phone, it wasn't the one I'd just heard at the door. It was groggy, confused, barely awake. Michael. Why are you calling me this late? Is everything okay? It was my mother. And whatever was at the door, it never had been. I felt sick. My whole body trembled with a cold that wasn't just fear, but realization. They'd almost done it, gotten inside my head, worn her voice like a mask. They knew I was close to breaking, but I hadn't broken the rules. Not yet, and I wasn't going to. Slowly, hands shaking, I reached for the cassette player. 1 tape left. Tape 6. I slid it in. Pressed play. The familiar hiss, the static crackle, and then my grandfather's voice, low and steady. You're at the end now, Michael. This is the last part. If you're hearing this, it means they're desperate. My eyes darted toward the door. The knocking had stopped. The whispering had vanished. But the pressure in the room was unbearable. Like I was sitting miles below the ocean surface, something massive pressing against the walls of reality, waiting for a single crack to break through. Listen to me very carefully. This is where I failed. The tape skipped, a heavy, shuddering breath. The first time they came for me, I was your age. My father left me the tapes, just like I left them for you. But I made a mistake, Michael. I talked to them. I thought I could understand. I thought if I just listened, I'd be safe. A long pause. Then his voice dropped, barely a whisper now. That's why I had to erase Peter. That's why I had to erase the others. Because once they get inside, you can't get them out. My stomach twisted. I wanted to turn the tape off, but I couldn't. They wear you, Michael, like a suit. They mimic you, walk like you, talk like you, and no one knows the difference. Not right away. A cold sweat ran down my back. My skin felt wrong, too tight. I don't know how much longer I stayed. Maybe a year, maybe less. But eventually, they replaced enough of me that I wasn't me anymore. My knees buckled. I had to grip the desk to stay upright. And I don't know how long I had before your father figured it out. Silence. Then his voice again. Broken now. I didn't make these tapes to protect you, Michael. I made them because I knew you'd have to make the same choice your father made. Because I knew one day you'd wonder if I was ever really me at all. Something inside me cracked. I felt sick to my core. This was the end game. The twist that had been stalking me all along. My grandfather had broken the rules, and something had taken him. My father, the man who never talked about our family, the one who begged my mother never to bring me back here, he had figured it out. He'd seen what wore my grandfather's skin, and he'd erased him, killed him, or whatever that meant. And now, it was my turn. I stood up slowly. The house around me felt smaller now, claustrophobic. The corners seemed to fold in on themselves, stretching like shadows under a dying sun. The door creaked. It was opening. I moved fast, snatched the last object on the desk, a metal Zippo. My grandfather's old lighter. I knew what I had to do. I grabbed the box of tapes, poured out the half-full whiskey bottle sitting on the shelf. The smell of alcohol cut through the air like acid. And then I struck the lighter. The flame roared to life. The whispering returned, fast and frenzied, slamming into my skull from every direction. The air turned black and wet with static. I dropped the flame into the box of tapes. They caught instantly. The flames climbed high, hungry, violent. A thick wall of smoke filled the study, acrid and choking. Then, for the first time, the thing screamed. Not human, not animal, just pure wrongness tearing itself apart. High-pitched, alien, desperate. The shadows buckled, peeled back like burning skin. The door slammed shut behind me with a force that shook the walls, and then silence. I left before dawn. I didn't look back. I didn't dare. By the time the fire department got there, the entire study had been reduced to ash. The tapes, gone. My grandfather's voice, gone. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly alone. No whispering, no shadows watching, no voices. It was over, or at least, I thought it was. Until 2 nights later, when I woke up in my apartment, to a knock at the door. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. Then, from the shadows in the corner of my room, a voice whispered, "Michael," and something moved.